idea come to life. Join us as we go behind the door.
Good evening, roomies, and welcome back to another episode of Behind the Door with the Grey Rooms podcast. I am your host, Brooks Bigley, and with me tonight is Brandon Kohl, the author of our Season 3 bonus story entitled White Barn. How are you this evening, Brandon?
I'm doing well. How about you, Brooks?
I'm doing okay. It took us a couple of technological misfires in order to get here, but that always happens in the Grey Rooms. There's a very long-standing curse when it comes to hooking up any way technologically over the internet for us. So I'm glad you're here. I'm glad you're here.
Oh yeah, I'm glad. This is great.
So hey, where are you based out of?
So I live out in Coralville, Iowa. It's just outside of Iowa City.
Okay, is that like rural, or is that more like a suburb area, like a city area?
It's definitely like a city/suburban area, basically. I'm originally from Dubuque, Iowa. It's a little bit north. Just had a little bit of change, moving closer to a city. It's been pretty great. I love it down here. So I mean, not a lot of barns around here though.
Well, then, like, of course, then you must have seen something like on the side of the freeway, or you were driving somewhere that inspired, the story. Or did you just out of your ass just pull an idea of like, well, I think this is going to be a creepy idea. Like, how did you come up with this?
It actually started from a nightmare that I had growing up in Iowa. You drive any back roads, you're going to see barns everywhere. And just one day I just had a really, really messed up dream where like I was inside of a barn and just like it was coming to life. And then it was like basically swallow me whole. Like everything was just coming at me. And I woke up, I was just like, oh my God, this would be a great story idea. So I wrote it down, but this was back when I was in high school. I didn't actually get to fully write the story until like many years later, until it came back to me. And I'm like, I should really write this down.
Got it. Okay, so you've kind of carried this story with you. It's kind of meant something. Interesting that, so your dream was about like the ending, of the story. We have, your character, Jessica, literally sucked into the ground. And that was basically the crux of the nightmare that you were having. Yeah.
It was definitely almost similar to that. I mean, wouldn't say it was dead on, but like there was like other things that happened, but I didn't want to go too crazy with the ending. I just wanted to make it just like one simple death that just, is slow and painful. So
yeah. Well, then if we follow the evolution backwards here, how did you get the rest of the story that kind of grew around it? Because you have like some Salem witch stuff going on, but I know that was like in the 1600s. But yours, she somehow dips into like the 1800s. Like, how did you start to develop that around your original nightmare?
So, basically I just, did a lot of like history, like looking up history and stuff like in Iowa. I think this was actually for like a different story I was trying to work on. And I heard about some like witch trials that were still going on even in the mid to late 19th centuries. And there was even some in Iowa too. So I thought it'd be cool. Oh yeah, let's do one in Iowa. But then it started off where it was going to be just set in Iowa. But then I was like, oh no, I want to give this like a Twilight Zone vibe. I want to, it's like all of a sudden, she's in Iowa. The next thing you know, boom, she's in Massachusetts. It's like, what? It's like, we don't know like how this really happened. I mean, it's just one of those things where I just wanted to kind of mix the history that I found. Like, there's some Salem witch trials that were still going on. Like, that's why the one angry mob person that she was talking to in the story, is like, oh, this is one of the last remaining spots that they still do it. And
right.
I was, I would do the research, obviously to make sure like, okay, well, yeah, that checks out. That checks out. So, just try to make it as period accurate as I could. So, I mean, I just thought I would just put a little twist to it, and then just like I think the whole scenery, actually the white barn, the reason why I made it a white barn, because there was actually a white barn I seen one time going on a back road with some friends, and it was like kind of, you know, it was dusk out and stuff like that, and we're driving by, and there's just like a white barn just randomly in this field, and usually, you know, you have a house like right next to the barn or something. Like this barn just like was by itself, so I thought that was very strange, and that eventually got placed into my basket of the ingredients that I needed for the story. So that's why it ended up being a white barn.
Okay, okay. And then like there was this like interesting symbolism at the end, kind of like the paint being washed off, the red paint being washed off to reveal the white barn underneath. What was that about?
That was the so in my head when I was writing this scene, when the parents are coming out, if you were watching a movie and it's like you see the parents walking out, all of a sudden the barn's not white, it's red. So it's like she could only see that it was white the entire time. And then if you read kind of like in the middle of the story where she first discovers the barn, and when she passes through the pine trees, like, you know, she was blinking and it was going red, it was going white. It's like it was basically her getting into that strange little bubble that she's finding herself in. And that's what the headaches are too. Actually, it's a funny story. When I was coming up with how I wanted her to approach the barn, I was actually suffering a migraine at the time, so I was like, "Oh my god, maybe I should use this." So,
Yeah, yeah, yeah. That was a great
oh
addition. Like, and to me, like, you know, if you can kind of look at the story as like the listener can kind of bring a tad bit of their own feelings and like bigger world
yeah,
vision to it. Like I wanted to think of it like just for whatever the hell reason there was this weird time distortion thing that was allowing her to kind of step through the veil into a different time basically, and that's why the barn suddenly
yeah,
appeared, and that's why she was able to interact with these people.
yeah.
You know, and it could still be open. It could still be no. You as the writer, you could be like, nope, that's not what it was. They were just ghosts. It was just apparitions. But you know, to me, it was cool that you didn't definitively say these were ghosts and it was this way. You kind of did leave it open that way. So, yeah, that was
Oh
pretty
yeah,
interesting.
yeah. I've had people like you know, like proofreaders read for me, and like I get they once they get to the end, they're like, "What what's with the, you know, what's with the people, like what's up with this barn, like what's the history?" I'm like, exactly, like we don't know.
Yeah, yeah. Sometimes it's frustrating to me, and I don't know why. I'll have certain stories where like I have to. It's a burning desire. I need to know what the fuck is happening in the background. But in
Oh yeah,
general, stories are very satisfying when it's this open ended is the wrong word. It just seems. You don't. You can pick your own conclusion. I guess it's the same thing. Whatever. Stop me from talking.
yeah. No, you're good.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
because like I wanted to leave it open. Yeah, just because like I mean, the story has always like I said, I came up with this idea back in high school, which was like about 10 years ago. So I just, you know, it came back to me finally after, you know, I think I started writing this maybe a little like almost 2 years ago, and so I just figured I got to write it. I mean, it's coming back to me, so it's like it must. So I hold it dear to my heart because it's basically like the first story that I really like put a lot of effort into it, and so that's why I'm like, you know what, maybe I might want to come and visit this little universe of mine. So there's actually an idea in my folder right now where I might actually write probably a novella of during the witch trial during that time period. So you actually see what all went down even before Jessica gets involved with all this. But you basically get like a history piece of like everything that went on in that barn, and there's a good chance I might have the secret to why the barn is how it is, why it can basically turn itself into a time machine almost. So
Got it. So you're kind of growing the world a little bit. Interesting. Yeah. So then
yeah.
what inspired you in general then to do this horror story? Do you normally write stories in general, and B, do you normally write horror stories?
I definitely started out doing horror story. I think any person who started out writing horror obviously got the inspiration of Stephen King. I'm a huge Stephen King nut. I'm actually looking at my beautiful Stephen King collection right now in my office. It is glorious. But yeah, like I started out with horror, but I think the older I got, you know, and like I think the same thing goes with like King too. Like you notice like some of his newer books kind of steps away from like the true horror. You know, he works the more like realistic type horror and stuff. And I think I've seen myself doing that too. So
Yeah.
it's like the more I read his stuff, the more I kind of like follow him almost, where like now my stories I'm trying to get more realistic. Like the White Barn definitely was probably the last like gruesome story I ever like wrote where it's like not very realistic. Some of the stuff I'm currently writing now, like they're still pretty, it's like horror, but it's like more like realistic. That's why, some people might actually find it more terrifying because it's like, holy shit, this could actually probably happen.
So what I like is that there's so many kinds of horror out there, different genres of horror, psychological horror, and like true like slasher horror, and just giant monster horror, and so you can kind of feed those different niche. And like our very very first episode, Falling, back in season 1, like the preseason episode, was just about a guy. His parachute wouldn't open properly, and it was that torment he felt as he was watching the ground rush up to his face. Like there were no monsters, there were no bad people. It was nothing but just sadness, and that's horror too. So
Yeah.
you can write literally anything. And turn it into horror. I guess it sounds terrible. It's like that's how easy horror is. No, but you can definitely pick from multiple genres. Horror is very malleable, I think. And so you just did a cool thing of you had this like I wouldn't say body horror, but definitely for sure how Jason put all that audio spin to it. Reminded me of like the Alien movies. I forget the one, but where like it was the hybrid alien and the human, and it got sucked through the porthole or the hole that was blasted in the side of the spaceship. That was some gruesome shit. So your story ended on a pretty gruesome high note. But then having that historic sprinkling in, and like to me, like I said, that open ended, so where I thought it was like time travel, whatever. Just having that those blends, led to a really really cool story. So then, what other kind of horror stuff have you written?
Like I said recently, it's just been more of like realistic type. There's actually a couple short horror stories I'm working on right now that are more realistic, not like, I wouldn't say it's like the White Barn, like definitely doesn't have like that psychological, like monster type story. It's more like, basically my writing recently when it comes to like my stories, I try to make it kind of like a modern day Twilight Zone. It's just because I love the Twilight Zone growing up.
Yeah.
And I've watched it I watched all the marathons on like New Year's and 4th of July week. It was great. And just that was like my whole idea when I write these stories is like, I want to make it almost like you're watching, like, well, obviously you're reading it, but it's almost like you're viewing a modern day Twilight Zone episode, but like, so like 2 stories that I actually have prepared that I'm probably going to submit for season 5. I was unable to submit the one for season 4. I was a little late on my deadline. So I'm like, oh, maybe I'll submit both of them. Maybe they'll pick one of them. So
shame on you. Hang your head. You got season 5. We'll gladly accept. We're open now. It's all the same.
So, but these 2 stories are definitely. I would say one is kind of psychological. I don't want to give too much just in case if it does get picked, and I don't want to give too much away. But like, that one is definitely psychological, but it's more of like mentally thinking. Like it's like someone who is anxious all the time, and overthinking. It's like that type of like story the whole time you're reading it. This character is like, oh, what if this happens? What if this happens? And it basically drives him nuts to the point where like something bad might happen. And I have another one that is almost similar, but it's it's more about him having a personal problem, and someone else is trying to help him fix it. But he basically, actually, I don't even know how to really describe this one without giving it away. So I really don't want to, because this one is definitely another personal one I kind of like. Because I mean, I guess I can tell you like what it takes place in a bar, and my family actually owns a bar. I actually helped out a few years, so I kind of came up with this idea when I was working at the bar. So, and it's a very dark story, like a man who's like depressed who owns this bar and stuff like that, and it just there is some horror in it. That it's not just a depressing story. There is horror to it. So yeah, I'm trying to like. I still like doing horror. but like recently, just I've been making it more realistic. I mean, I want to get back to like the very like basically like the whiteboard, very descriptive, like with horror, like monsters or just like the stuff I grew up with. But I mean, as of now, I'm just gonna write whatever I feel like comes to me is gonna what I think readers will actually like, and also they might relate. Who knows? So, but
Absolutely, yeah, yeah, yeah. Think of it like your desire to write is like a divining rod. And you gotta kind of meander and follow it to where it wants to go. Before we get into that, I just want to take a quick break for a word from our sponsors. And now
all
back to
right.
the show. So, what like in terms of writing, what do you do? Kind of like, do you do it on a daily basis? Are you one of those writers? Are you one of those people that has to constantly write ideas down for future growth, or do you stick with just one at a time? Like, how is your pattern with writing?
Oh, I have a very, very unique way of doing my writing. I like to do this thing where I have ADHD to where I start with one project and then I hop on another one and I hop on another one. And then, next thing I know, I forget which story I was working on. And then I start writing other stuff for a different story that it's a very crazy process. So that's why I've been trying to stick to one thing at a time. But usually what I do is I'll start with just like plotting out, like jotting stuff down, doing timelines and stuff. Just so I'm not trying to write it just quite yet. So I don't want to like keep jumping from project to project, which I'm very guilty of. The one unique thing I like to do actually that I found out helps me a lot. I actually wrote the first draft for White Barn this way. I actually wrote it on my typewriter.
Ah, how did that work?
Well, I actually collect some typewriters. I have about like six in my collection right now, and basically I keep them up to date. I have fresh ribbons stacked away for situations like this, and to me, it's actually a lot better than writing on the computer. Just mainly because you don't have that red squiggly line, bugging you when it's like, hey, you messed this up. So I don't
Wow.
know.
Yeah.
It's definitely unique to write with because you're more focused with the story. It helps you slow down, so you're not constantly typing, and you mess up, and you got to keep backing away, and then it's like your brain keeps jumping back from the story. So I wanted to try writing it on the typewriter, and it worked. Like I was able. I think when I started writing on the typewriter, it took me only like close to 2 weeks to finish the story, which is a lot faster than any of the other stories I've written back in the day when I used to write a lot, like when I was in high school. But like, it's just I don't know. It's very like you've heard of ASMR, right?
Yes, 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 yes. There's a certain
It's kind of
tactile
like that.
thing that you probably got out of it, right? The connection to the
Oh yeah.
typewriter and like bringing your words out of your head into your hands and down into the paper that way. It must be very powerful feeling.
Oh, it was. And as soon as I wrote that last page of the story, it was just a great feeling just to pick everything up. You look at it and you're just like, wow, I just did this. And but then you realize, oh, now I gotta revise it and do multiple drafts, and you're just like, shit.
Yeah, how do you revise drafts on a typewriter? Like how do you like edit something on page 5?
Okay, so basically, I actually like this system because so I have the papers with me, and then do it like as if I'm a teacher. I'm going through. It's like, oh, I fucked up on this one. I should have said this. And then once I go through it, I probably go through it at least twice, just through the paper, and keep adding more stuff to the papers. And then what I do is then now I can finally type it on my computer, so I can. It's almost like you're rewriting the story, but like you get to redo it a different way. For some
Interesting.
reason, to me, it just instead of like scrolling down all the way to like page 5, and it's like you're trying to find that word. Like for some reason, when I rewrote it from the papers that I typed on the typewriter, it's almost like I was rewriting the story again. And there was actually a few times like I was like, oh, actually, this would be better if I did it this way. So, it's like you get that groove going once you're retyping it. So I revise it at least twice. So I typed the first draft, revise it at least like twice on a piece of paper. I, got my pen and everything, going over it. I'll reread it. I'll have someone read it. And then So, okay, I'm going to start putting it on the computer. So I open up my document, start typing it out. And then once I have it completely typed out, then I go through that one more time. And it just gives me like a second chance to, like, as I'm typing it out, to like, if I come up with something better, I can add it again. And then when I add that, I can revise that once I'm done with that. So I think this took maybe like I revised it like 6 times, including with what I did with the typewriter. But
Yeah.
I don't know. It's just, yeah, to some people it might seem like a lot of work, but to me, it's just, it was like a better system for me.
Sure. Yeah, and it's your way of doing your magic. Like I'll share a story. I have a buddy that I don't remember how he came in possession of it. It might have been like an old family heirloom that just kind of got handed down, but he had this old typewriter and he actually like created kind of a story, like a journey of it on social media of him trying to find a place like near where we live that could repair it so that he could use it. Because, you know, he's a creative and he just wanted to kind of see like, oh, I've never like really interacted with a typewriter before and I have this opportunity. So he just did a really cool journey to repair it and find the places to take it and share that. And I just thought that was kind of a magical thing to do. And then here you are, you're writing stories with a typewriter. So yeah, congratulations, that's awesome.
Yeah, I mean, they're definitely harder to repair because there's not that many places around here that will. That's why I try to look up stuff like on YouTube or something, just finding ways. Like, and like, there's actually the typewriter that I actually wrote half of my book on. I love this typewriter. It was 1941 Smith Corona Sterling. It was like it had the best key feel and everything. Like, I thought this book was going to get finished on this typewriter, but then it crapped out on me. And then I tried everything I could to get it fixed. And
Yeah.
I was like sitting there, you know, flashlight and everything. I'm like, why isn't it not working? And so, but yeah, it's difficult once they stop working, but then, you know, it only gives you another excuse to go get a new one.
There you go. Yeah, and the internet
So,
should have, you know, a plethora of
oh yeah.
equipment to buy to maintain them. Hopefully, I don't know. I'm guessing you would know, but that's really cool. What do you do like with any? Do you work with any larger writing communities? Do you do anything like that?
Not really. I mean, I have a couple friends that I usually, well, you know, we'll do like little writing sessions together. I know like last summer I had a buddy who, he wanted to get back into writing and, you know, we would sit down and, you know, like he'll be in one end of the office, I'll be in the other end. We'll play, all right, we'll sit here for an hour, write, and we'll see what we come up with. And, you know, an hour goes by, you know, it's like, oh yeah, I got like a page and a half, kind of doing a little bit of character development here. And then, you know, like, he goes to me, he's like, how far did you get? It's like, I got the title. So it's, yeah. I mean, I mean, I'm definitely not a fast writer, I would definitely say, but like, I'm definitely one of those people, like, if I have a project that, you know, like with the White Barn, like if it comes back to me, like I'll try to at least go back and write it.
For sure. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. That's a great spirit. What do you like about horror in other media? Like, do you appreciate horrors like do you listen to podcasts like other horror podcasts or do you prefer movies or like how do you get your horror fix?
I mean, I definitely know podcasts have been like the most recent. Like when I came across your guys' podcast, it was definitely unique because I listen to audiobooks too. Like that's like a lot of people are like, oh, you just don't read the books. Like, well, no, sometimes you know you just want to listen to it. You know, you got like you guys do a great job with the vocal works and like you know just background. It sounds great. Like when I listened to the preview to the White Barn, I was like, oh my god, this is awesome. Like especially the ending with the horror of Jessica's death. I was like, oh my
Yeah.
god, this sounds beautiful to me. So,
So
but yeah, you know,
fucking
that's,
amazingly horrible. It was terribly.
yeah,
Whew. Oh, you could just feel everything. Oh, when the ribs broke. Oh man.
you know, it's like it was great. So yeah, that's why I'll listen to audiobooks. That's why it's like, oh yeah, I'll give this one a shot. So yeah, it was great. So I would continue to try to find other podcasts, but I think I mostly stuck with you guys just mainly because like you know you guys had so many episodes at the time when I found you. So I was like, oh, I'll give this a shot. And then that's when I saw the submissions for season 3. I was like, oh man, it's perfect timing to see if White Barn can get its spotlight.
There you
And
go. And it finally
sure enough, it
happened.
did. Yeah.
Do you listen to like the No Sleep podcast or the Wicked Library, anything like that?
I haven't heard of them, but that's why I'm kind of glad that I got in the Discord because I can see other people like recommending stuff. So like, it's definitely
Yeah.
going to be something on my list. I
Yeah.
know I used to listen to Lore
Okay.
a lot. That was like I mostly like that just because of like the history behind stuff.
Right, right,
No,
right.
it's
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It's a different way. Like listening to him discuss and talk about these things is, like teaching you about them versus like
yeah,
listening to people act. I
yeah.
recommend the No Sleep podcast specifically
Okay.
to you. We're very much like them. We used to joke that we're like their little cousin or their little baby brother. But they do what we do. It's like kind of a fully produced story, not just like straight narration, but more characters interacting back and forth, as well as like multiple stories like that in one episode. And they've been doing it for, gosh, almost 10 years now, less than 10 years, 9 years, 8 years, 10
Wow.
years. Yeah. So they're like in season 16 now. I mean, they're astronomically higher than us, and their production's amazing. But I recommend them to you because we love them and they
All
love
right.
us.
Yeah. I'll definitely have to check that out. Yeah.
And do you watch anything? Have you watched anything currently, like on Netflix or any other streaming services, like horror
Um,
related?
I know I recently started Midnight Mass because I'm a huge Mike Flanagan fan.
Yes. What do you think so far? Like, I mean, whatever. You can spoilers, everybody. Or we want to talk about shit. How many
I mean,
episodes are you in? I've seen the whole thing. I loved it.
I think I got to season 3 because I know
Episode
I've
3.
been slacking on a lot of my shows.
Yeah.
Work's been getting a little crazy, but yeah, I so far I really like it. I mean, definitely can get revival vibes. Stephen King's revival book, which actually Mike Flanagan was supposed to do.
Oh yeah, Mike
Which I was
Flanagan is amazing, doing so many good horror stuff, like just repeatedly over and over again over the years.
I was actually very very pleased with his vision of Doctor Sleep. That was a great story. Like the book's good, but like the story he told mesh with The Shining, which I don't know if a lot of people out there know, but like 80% of the Stanley Kubrick Shining is nothing like the book. That's actually one of the reasons why Stephen King hated the book or hated the movie. I mean, there's nothing like it. Like he has a famous line that he always says when everyone asks him about it. He's like, it's like a beautiful looking car that has no engine.
Oh no. Yeah, I'm one of
Yeah.
those people that's only seen the movie. I actually have to admit I have not read the book version.
Oh yeah. If you read the book, yeah, you'll definitely be like, I don't remember that in the movie. I don't remember.
Right, right. But I'm familiar with what you're saying, that Stephen King was not happy at all about the
Yeah.
rendition. Yeah, but
Yeah,
so he got a blessing though, right, to Mike Flanagan to make that sequel.
Oh yeah.
It's like an unofficial sequel, basically.
Yeah, it's actually funny because at first Stephen King said no. He said he didn't want it to be made into a movie, but then spoiler if anyone hasn't seen it, there's a scene towards the end where Danny is with his dad as the bartender.
Mm-hmm.
He like basically showed him that scene with like in the script. He's like, all right, read this scene and let me know what you think. And then after he read it, he was just like, all right, you have my blessing. Like just for some reason, he was just like, he loved that connection with Danny having another connection with his dad. Like he's just like, all right, I trust you. And so I was like, sweet, because that movie was great.
Yeah, it was like creatives recognizing creatives. That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
My favorite Stephen King book will always be Christine. I read the book first as a kid, and like that just kind of fucked me up a little bit. But it was just a book, and then I remember like finding out there was a movie, and so then seeing the movie and just like it again. It always the movies kind of deviate from the books, but the movie really fucked me up. Having the visuals of this car killing so many people. So anyways, that will always be my favorite like introduction and then love that Stephen King created.
His stuff from like basically early 90s to later were definitely his like most fucked up moments of his books. I mean, also he didn't help that he was like also coked out of his mind, drinking nonstop. So
Right.
I mean,
or maybe it helped tremendously. I don't know. What came? Oh no, he doesn't remember what he made during that period, right? No, it wasn't. Didn't he make Cujo?
It was Cujo.
Yeah.
Yeah, Cujo. He didn't remember making that.
Sad. Yeah, that's very sad to not remember. Well, he's not doing that anymore. What did you think of the Langoliers? Did you watch the original movie? I think that was 4 or 5 parts or something. All right, it was just incredible, 4 hours long.
It was a mini series. Yeah, it was a 3-hour mini series. Yeah, it was definitely strange.
Yeah, well, it was so cool up until I felt kind of let down by the 3D round Langolier balls that were floating around eating shit.
Yeah.
I was like, what is this? It was all this build up for that. It felt like such a great psychological horror, all the way up to the point that there you go, there's the monster, there's a reveal. I remember being a little bit let down. So if you enjoyed that, I'm sorry.
I mean, I'm the same thing. It's the same with the It miniseries too from the 1990. It's like you're like, oh, you're getting to the end, and then next thing you know, you have this very claymation, really horrible CGI spider, and you're just like, oh my god. So I mean, I still love the miniseries.
Right,
I even like the remakes or the remake, part 1 and part 2. I know everyone gave part 2 so much hate, but I felt like part 2 really captured the adult portion of the book very well. A lot of people are like, oh no, that doesn't make any sense. It's like, well, obviously you didn't read the fucking book. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
So,
No, I was a fan of the newer ones too. Thought it was well done. I'm excited for you to watch Midnight Mass though, because that was definitely Mike Flanagan again. Just or in the concept of how do I not give it away, dude? The concept that they're melding of two concepts together, religion with something else, was very intriguing. It keeps you hooked, and it just makes you whether you're a religious person or not, it makes you think about religion differently. It's very intriguing.
Yeah.
So anyone listening, go see Midnight Mass. You'll be hooked. I'd say it's a weird slow burn first, second episode, but by the third, things start to click and shit goes to hell. Or not literally, but things go bad. It's crazy. So enjoy that.
Yeah, I mean, yeah. So I'm definitely looking forward to that, especially since you said everything starts getting better after the 3rd episode. So
Yeah. So stick to it. Well, as we draw to a close here, I wanted to ask you if you had anything that you wanted to share with people, who are new at writing. If you had any type of social media that you wanted to share of anything that you do that you wanted to encourage people with, just anything of that sort.
I don't have too many it's just if you want to be a writer, just write. I mean, a lot of people say, oh, it's got to be. It's definitely not easy, but definitely try to write for yourself. Just keep writing stories that you want to hear, and eventually, if you think it'll work out, then yeah, go with it. I'm currently working on a book that I've been working on for 7 years now, but I'm at the halfway point now because finally gonna buckle down. Actually, starting of next year, so January 1st, I already have it all planned in a binder. Spending all of next year to finish this book of mine. It's been a project I've been wanting to do for a year or 7 years now, and finally it's a history period too. There is some horror to it, but it's historical fiction. It's a very great concept that I truly think will definitely be different to some people who I can mix different genres with. So I mean, it's a story that I want to read myself really bad. So basically, I can tell writers if there's something you really want to read that but you think others might not like, just write it because it's for you anyways.
Yeah, exactly. You got to get out what is in you, and that's part of the creative process. Don't keep it in.
Yeah.
If it stays an idea, then that it'll never become a story, basically.
Yeah, I mean, because if if you think no one's gonna like it, well, some weirdo out there is gonna like it too. I mean, if you put it out there, you won't know who else likes it until you put it out there. But I definitely recommend for anyone who's trying to become a writer, if you want instead of going to I mean, you can still go to college and everything and do writing classes, but if you want a quick pick me up on learning about writing, I definitely recommend you to read Stephen King's On Writing. That's actually, I've read it at least 10 to 15 times already now. He has all these good points, basically what I'm already telling you. It's just write for yourself. There's nothing to it, don't write for other people, otherwise you're never going to enjoy what you're doing. It's kids these days love seeing vampires sparkling in the sunlight, loving a girl. It's like, but oh man, that's so shitty. I don't want to do that. So don't do it.
Right.
Just write. Yeah. Just if you want to write a story about a girl getting sucked up by a barn, then fucking do it.
Exactly. And then a podcast will make a story out of it.
Exactly. So, I mean, yeah, just that's all you can do is just write. That's all you can do. I mean, and also read. Got to read a lot too. When you're not writing, you got to read.
Yeah, you got to practice. Yeah. That's what keeps the brain going.
You got to, yeah.
Excellent advice. Yeah. Well, it was great of you for joining us tonight. I appreciate you taking the time to sit and chat, Brandon, and I thank you for sharing your world with us here in the Grey Rooms.
Yeah, no problem. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, it was really, really fun to chat with you and explore, the story and your mind and everything. You're a cool dude.
Thanks. I wish my fiance would think the same.
Just have her listen to the story. She'll learn the true you.
Oh, yeah.
And as usual, the biggest thank you goes out to our fans and followers who listen daily and spread the good word of Bob. Exciting things are coming. #Stay Gray. Take care and enjoy your evening, Brandon.
You too, Brooks.
Thank you. And good night, folks. Bye.
Join us each week after every episode for another edition of Behind